What's up everyone, Lion Roar here, and we have a brand new clan in Bloodline Heroes of Lithis. It is the Choir Discordant, so I'm going to give them a full breakdown, and I'm going to talk about which one I prefer the most. The male, the female, or are they both about equally as good? But first, download Gemstone Legends, a mobile RPG puzzle match game. Use the link in the description to start with free stuff, including a bonus hero. Alright, so let's start out by taking a look at the clan trait, and this is just an epic champion, so of course, the higher the rarity, the higher the level of this trait is going to be, and that does affect the percentage number you're going to see on this, but this trait is called Grim, and it increases damage dealt to enemies with an active shield by some percent. On the epic one, it says 8.67%, so you can expect that, of course, to be higher on the higher leveled, higher rarity heroes. As far as this trait goes, it's a little bit niche, only because not everybody gets a shield, not everybody has a shield all the time, so I certainly don't think this is necessarily a trait that you need to go chasing, unless there is some kind of synergy that evolves in the meta where there's a whole lot of shields for some reason. If you know you're going against a team where everybody's going to have a shield, that can be a pretty good trait. But it's not one that I'm thinking like I'm going to go putting around in other heroes, so I don't necessarily need to chase the companion or leveled intimacy up just for this trait. But let's take a look at the champions. I'm going to go back to the Renown Champion tab here to take a look at both of these with the full levels, because I like to decide if putting all the resources into it, is it worth it? So let's take a look. Do note this is all max highest numbers. It's not going to be like this out of the gate. But anyway, looking at the male first, we have Pale Melody. Creates a 5-second shield that absorbs damage equal to 40% of the caster's max constitution. That's a pretty good shield. A lot of the shields in this game have been based on a champion's strength, which is not much. But when it's based on the constitution, that's humongous. That's a big shield. Now, do note it is for 5 seconds, so it's not like some shields that last until the damage has eaten them away. During the shield's duration, all nearby enemies take damage equal to 80% of the caster's strength per second. Once the shield breaks, it inflicts stunned to nearby enemies for 2 seconds and removes all their buffs. That's a pretty good crowd control type of ability there. I like seeing that on that. It's going to be very disruptive. So that means this guy's occasionally, it's very difficult for him to take damage, and he's stunning the other champions. Now, taking a look at the ultimate. Requiem for the Dead. The caster strums the strings of fate and plays entrancing melody for 5 seconds. Once the caster is playing, they can't be interrupted, and their damage taken is reduced by 80%. Again, another thing that means that this guy's not taking a whole lot of damage. During this time, the caster will continue to summon the undead, who will pounce on enemies, dealing damage to all enemies along their path equal to 200% of the caster's strength, and preventing enemies from casting any active skills or ultimate attacks for 2 seconds. Again, you got stunned on the other ability, and you've got this one preventing them from being able to cast their specials, which is really, really interesting. Very, very CC type of hero. The caster recovers HP by 20% of the damage dealt by the undead. If an enemy is killed by the undead, the caster and a random champion ally each recover 100 energy. So, when you have champions like this that are dealing damage and gaining life along the way, I am finding that turns out to be a really powerful kind of effect. Healing on its own hasn't seemed to be that powerful. Sometimes damage on its own can be pretty powerful, but the risk is that a champion is going to be a glass cannon where they're putting out a lot of damage, but then they die easily. This is the best of both worlds. He's putting out damage and he's staying alive. On top of not taking a lot of damage in the first place, he's potentially going to be healing a lot. Let's take a look at this last ability, Ballad of Decay. Each attack heals the caster by 5% of the max constitution. If killed, the caster will be revived whenever an allied or enemy champion is killed. That's amazing. Revived. Oh my gosh, we got it. It's in the game. Once revived, the caster immediately recovers 60% of max constitution. Again, that's huge, and kind of leads me to believe that rather than putting honorable on this, because there's that debate between what's better, honorable or energetic, This guy might be begging for energetic. Just saying. Okay, so I kind of got to backtrack here a little bit because I started talking in the middle of that sentence. But once revived, the caster immediately recovers 60% of max constitution, gaining invincibility briefly and taunts nearby enemies. So that means they're not able to use their specials then. They can only attack him with regular attacks. As long as the caster survives, whenever an allied or enemy champion is killed, he will self-heal by 30% of his max constitution within 1 second. This guy's incredible. Now, I'm gonna be quite honest, and maybe I'm a little too hyped here, but this really has female Devala vibes to me. Like, you've got all the good stuff printed on all the abilities here. Not only is he not taking a lot of damage a lot of the time, but then if he does take damage, he's like got several ways to regain all that health. And an enormous amount, especially if you're using something like energetic to do that. And on top of it, he can revive like this. Just reading it makes me feel like there's some things here that are better than female Devala, and that's saying something. Now, I'm gonna be cautious until I get one and can play with it and test it out and see if it's really that good. This might be a little hyperbolic, and I've seen before in this particular game more than any, it's hard to predict how a champion is actually going to play out on the battlefield. But just based on the words they're printing on these abilities and, you know, barring no bugs or anything like that, this looks unbelievable. And I definitely want him. And I am definitely going to be summoning for him. So make sure that you're subscribed, because I'm going to do a summons video and try and go after him, talk about him a little bit there. And of course, I'm going to want to test him out. So you're going to want to make sure to watch those videos. But yeah, I mean, I think I would go with my typical fast boy type of traits on this, like agile, focus, you know, probably energetic, like I was saying, and then brutal, for, you know, the damage that's being dealt there. And I might have to think a little harder about some of the traits. There might be some other ones too. So if you've already thought about what traits might go well in this, make sure to leave it in the comments, because I'm curious about that too. Now, can the female match up to that? Because that was pretty amazing. All right, let's look at the first ability here. Wailing Scythe. Quickly swings the scythe to attack nearby enemies 3 times, with each attack dealing damage equal to 150% of the caster's strength. For each enemy hit, the caster recovers 40% of lost constitution. Now, this is one where the health is actually based on strength and the actual damage that's being dealt. So it's not as much as just recovering constitution, right? So for each enemy hit, the caster recovers 40% of lost constitution. The caster's summoned undead will cast the active skill in unison with her. Looking at the ultimate, Song of the Banshee orders the undead to attack nearby enemy champions, dealing damage equal to 550% of the caster's strength. That is a lot of damage. Reducing their energy recovery speed by 40% for 6 seconds. So, you know, of course, slowing down an enemy champion is always good. If undead is killed, it will be revived with 80% of max constitution. So, this undead they're talking about is on the next ability. We're going to see that in just a moment here. But here, you have another reviving thing. Now, I personally would like to see the actual champion be revived, which is what's printed on the male. But on the female, it's talking about reviving this undead. So, let's take a look at Mournful Companion, last ability. When the battle starts, the caster summons an undead to fight alongside her. So that's the undead it's talking about. The undead shares the same stats with the caster. Notice it doesn't say, like, traits and abilities and stuff. It says stats, and that's specifically talking about, like, the HP, of course, and the attack and stuff like that. So it shares the same stats with the caster, taking 50% less skill damage and continuously attack enemy champions in the back row. That's a really powerful ability. That's probably actually my favorite thing I've read so far on this champion. Whenever an enemy is killed, the undead will permanently gain 30% more max constitution while keeping her current constitution percentage. If the caster takes a fatal attack, the undead will take the attack in her stead. That's kind of like invincibility, but it's like a one-shot type of invincibility. So, do take note of that. When the undead is killed, the caster gains invincibility and recovers 20% of the max constitution per second for 2 seconds. So it's like a one-shot type of invincibility there that's not going to recur or anything like that. Listen, there's a lot of powerful stuff on the female as well. I think either one of them are going to be really good, but I'm kind of overwhelmed by what's written on the male's card. It is unbelievable. Now, she on her own, if the male didn't exist, she would be great because she's doing a lot of the things that you want to see as far as bringing another... It's in Magic the Gathering, you often talk about card advantage, like the person who has more cards in hand typically is the one that wins, and that's kind of the case with something like this, right? So when you're creating an undead, you're creating another champion, you're outnumbering them 6-5 potentially, right? Whenever you're recurring, when you're reviving, that's all really powerful stuff that's giving you card advantage, virtual card advantage. It's overwhelming your opponent. She would be amazing by herself, but the male looks so good to me. I think it tips the scale in favor of the male if you have to pick one to level up, but I certainly would have no qualms about leveling the female up either. It's just, if I'm going to put all my resources into one, I'm probably going for the male, but the female's really good, and quite honestly, I might want both. I kind of want to test both out, and for those of you that are going to go with the female, tell me why in the comments and what you're going to do as far as leveling that up. Now, as far as traits go, they're really leaning heavily into healing constitution here. And sometimes that goes well with honorable, and sometimes that goes well with energetic. As for the male, I think the energetic is better because of how it's healing based on constitution. But in this one, there's a lot, even though like it's throwing the word constitution in there, there's a lot of the healing that's going on here based on the damage that's being dealt. And in that case, I think honorable is the better one. I'm just going to lean on honorable for this one and energetic for the male. Just my opinion till I get to test it out. This is, of course, all speculation. But I want to know your thoughts as well. So please let me know. And if you enjoy videos like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification. And I will catch you in the next one.